I was 9 months pregnant with our third son when I found the lump on Jacob's sternum. It was about the size and the shape of an egg, and it was just right there in the middle of his chest. I called the pediatrician immediately, and she was able to get him in that day.
It was clear she didn't want to use the word cancer or tumor. She tried really hard not to. But clearly she was concerned and she was worried. So somehow we got in to see a doctor at the Texas Children's Hospital. And I remember walking in, and in the lobby, in the waiting room, there were all of these precious children with no hair who obviously had treatment for cancer. And that's when it really hit me. And so we went up and we saw a pediatric oncologist, and like Dr. Page, she was very measured, but it was clear she thought something was seriously wrong. We took Jacob home, and we spent the next several days almost aimless. At least that's what it felt like to me. I remember one night, we just felt ineffective. It's like we didn't know exactly what to do. At that point in our lives, we knew to pray, but for some reason we weren't able to pray, and what really was one of the more challenging times in our marriage at that point. Yeah, in order to ask God to heal him, we understood that we had to be prepared for God not to do it. And we couldn't bring ourselves to do that. That night we broke down praying. It's probably the hardest we've ever cried as a married couple to that point, and maybe even since then.
So after that night, we went to bed understanding that our willingness to ask God to heal Jacob was somehow connected to our belief in God.
But 2 weeks later, we go back to the hospital, and as we were leaving the hospital, one of the nurses runs out to get us as we're about to get into the garage. And I remember my heart skipping a beat, because the same nurse had told us that if it was cancer, if this was a tumor, the doctor would want to talk to us right away. And so as we saw her running across the lobby to grab us, the first thing I thought is the story does not have a happy ending. And about 5 minutes later, this doctor comes bounding in. He plops down on the chair and he says, "It's not cancer. I don't know what it is, but it's not cancer." Early that morning, the bump started going away, and then by that night, or somewhere around then, it was totally gone. And then also that same day, she went into labor with our third child. So we literally left Texas Children's Hospital and walked over to Texas Women's Hospital.
To have another baby.
Yeah.
So I don't know why God chose to answer our prayer the way that he did. It's certainly not because we are more deserving than the many parents that we know who have lost their children. So I want you to understand that we don't see this as a story about a miraculous healing. I mean, we know that God does, and he can work that way at times, but that's not at all what makes him God. The miracle itself is never the point of the story. This is a story about God growing a frail faith bold, and of a God whose love for us is so consuming that it would dare to enter into our deepest fears and our greatest vulnerabilities simply to meet with us there.